माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जना वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपी जना वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपी जना वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजना 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 जमुना तीर वनचारी जमुना तीर वनचारी जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजना यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजना यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजना यमुना तीर वनचारी यमुना तीर वनचारी जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय जय गौड़ प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि वो जयम विष्णुपद परमहंस प्रभुगाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतशी श्रीमद् अभय चरणारिंद भक्ति विरांत स्वामी महाराज श्री प्रभुपाद की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय नामाचार्य श्री ठाकुर हरिदास की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय नवदीप मायापुर धाम की जय गंगा देवी की जय यमुना मई की जय भक्ति देवी की जय तुलसी रानी की जय समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय इस्कॉन बीबीथी संस्थापक आचार्य श्री प्रभुपाद की जय गौ प्रेमानंदे all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Jai Shri Prabhupada Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishne Swadhamopagate Dharmajnanadibhi saha Kalaunashtadrishamesha Puranarko Dhunodita. This is Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 29, Lord Kapila's explanation of devotional service to his mother, Devahuti. Today we're on text number 40, very well-known verse, so kindly repeat after me. Yad-bhayād yati vātaḥ ayam sūryaḥ tapati yad-bhayāt yad-bhayāt varṣate devaḥ bha-gaṇaḥ bhāti yad-bhayāt yad-bhayāt vāti vātoyam sūryas tapati yad-bhayāt yad-bhayād varṣate devo bha-gaṇo bhāti yad-bhayāt. Yad-bhayāt yati vāto ayam. Sūryas tapati yad-bhayāt. Yad-bhayāt varṣate devo. bha-gaṇo bhāti yad-bhayāt. Yad-bhayāt yati vāto ayam. Sūryas tapati yad-bhayāt. Yad-bhayāt varṣate devo. bha-gaṇo bhāti yad-bhayāt. yad-bhayād sūryas tapati yad-bhayāt. Yad-bhayāt varṣate devo. bha-gaṇo bhāti yad-bhayāt. Yad-bhayād vāti atoyam. Sūryas tapati yad-bhayāt. Yad-bhayāt varṣate devo. bha-gaṇo yad-bhayāt. Yad-bhayād vāti atoyam. Sūryas tapati yad-bhayāt. Yad-bhayād varṣate devo. bha-gaṇo bhāti yad-bhayāt. Vāti Sūryas tapati yad-bhayāt. Yad-bhayād varṣate devo. bha-gaṇo bhāti yad-bhayāt. Mataji's. Yad-bhayād vāti atoyam. Sūryas tapati yad-bhayāt. Yad-bhayād varṣate devo. bha-gaṇo bhāti yad-bhayāt. Yet, of whom the Supreme Personality of Godhead, bhayāt, out of fear, yati, blows, vātaḥ, the wind, ayam, this, sūryaḥ, sun, tapati, shines, yet, of whom, bhayāt, out of fear, yet, of whom, bhayāt, out of fear, varṣate, sends rains, devaḥ, the god of rain, bha-gaṇaḥ, the host of heavenly bodies, bhāti, shine, yet, of whom, bhayāt, out of fear. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, founder and Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Out of fear of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the wind blows. Out of fear of Him, the sun shines. Out of fear of Him, the rain pours forth showers. And out of fear of Him, the host of heavenly bodies shed their luster. Kindly repeat. Out of fear of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the wind blows. Out of fear of Him, the sun shines. Out of fear of Him, the rain pours forth showers. And out of fear of Him, the host of heavenly bodies shed their luster. Shed their luster. Okay. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The Lord states in Bhagavad-gītā, mayādhyakṣeṇa prakṛtiḥ sūyate. That's chapter 9, text 10. Nature is working under my direction. The foolish person thinks that nature is working automatically, but such an atheistic theory is not supported in the Vedic literature. Nature is working under the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is confirmed in Bhagavad-gītā. And we also find here that the sun shines under the direction of the Lord, and the cloud pours forth showers of rain under the direction of the Lord. All natural phenomena are under superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Viṣṇu. Om ajnana-timirandhasya jnananjana-shalakaya chakshur-unmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurum dinataranam. He Shri Guru Jnana-dadina bantho swanandadatta karunaika sindho vrindavanasina hitavatara prasiradadha pranaya prachara. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodadao Gauravadai Pushpavantao Chitrao Shandao Tamonudao. Madgavirapi Gopala Swikuryat Kripaya Yadi Tadaiva Sampayah Pitva Hrishi Ustat Priyajanaha. So we have this passage here beginning from text number 38 that we're talking about persons who fear God. And that would be the demigods in particular. Any pious person fears God. God-fearing man is a common expression in English. So this is a famous verse, actually. We mentioned already that it's found throughout the Vedas in various places. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But first of all, Sridhar Swami in his commentary, beginning from text number 38, because that's where this passage actually begins, he says, Bhaya hetu tvamaha ya iti. In these verses, we're talking about the reason that people are afraid of the Supreme Lord. Bhutaireva bhutani atti sangharati. The Lord is the person who destroys all living entities, and he does so through other created beings of his own. Adhyajño is the Lord. He's the person who bestows the results of all your sacrifices. Kaliyatam vashi kurvatam, he says, in the previous verse, the text was there, Kaliyatam, means he controls, he subjugates everyone. He doesn't directly talk about this particular verse, number 40, it would seem. But his commentator, Vamshidhara, says, Deva Indraha. Here the word is used, Deva. Yad-bhayād, varṣate deva. That deva would be Indra, because Indra is in charge of the rain. Bhaganas tara samuhaha. And bha-gaṇa. What does bha-gaṇa mean? Gaṇa? Okay. No. Gaṇa. Yeah, groups. So bha-gaṇa, the group of bhas. Who are the bhas? We see Bhagavan, right? In this case, bha means the stars, those who are illuminating. Tara samuhaha, the whole host of stars. It's interesting that different commentators have different ideas about this. Viraragavacharya from the Ramanuja Sampradaya, he says, yad-bhayād yasya kalatmano bhagavato bhayad yato vāti prasarati bhishasmad vāta iti shruti artho abhipretaha. He's suggesting here, the words of the verse themselves suggest, famous verse from the Shrutis, Bhishasmad vāta, which means that the wind is blowing out of fear of him. It's the same idea. Deva here, he says, means Parjanya, the rain god. That would again be Indra, you can say. And bha-gaṇa means nakshatragana, the whole host of nakshatras. In astrology, we have different nakshatras. Very influential factor of your prarabdha karma. So nakshatra means lunar mansion in which you're born. So whether you take it as the lunar mansion or the whole group of stars, Different acharyas have expressed their different opinions. That's what we're talking about here. Vijayadvaj Tirtha of the Madhva Sampradaya. He says Nakshatragana. Again, it means the same thing. The nakshatras. Itaresham tarajñāniyata kartritvacha Viṣṇur eva ayam kala iti bhavenaha yad-bhayād. With this verse beginning yad-bhayād, he's talking with the understanding, or he's explaining that the Lord, the same Lord, Viṣṇu alone, who is actually the time factor, on account of his agency or his prerogative in moving and ordering all things within this universe and all beings within this universe. He is the Supreme Lord. So the statement beginning yad-bhayād is spoken with this fact in mind. The time factor is Viṣṇu alone, since it is his prerogative to order and direct all others. Okay, so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is the most brief. In fact, Jiva Goswami doesn't even say anything about this verse. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur only says, Yad yasmat Viṣṇu-akhyāt. Yet, the word here is used, means for yasmat, from him, or because of him. Because of whom, rather. And the time factor would be Viṣṇu, Viṣṇu-akhyāt. All right. In the Mahabharata, we find 1,000 names of Lord Viṣṇu. There's actually many more names of Lord Viṣṇu than just 1,000. But one of Vishnu's 1,000 names is Duratikrama. Duratikrama. Anybody want to hazard a guess? What does that mean? Dura, Ati, Krama. We talk about the Lord Vamana, he's called what? Trivikrama. Because he takes at least 3 steps and covers the entire universe. So atikrama means to surpass someone or to overstep, we can say literally, someone else. Duratikrama. It's very difficult for anyone to overstep Lord Viṣṇu. This is the idea. Duratikrama. Nobody can do it, really. That's one interpretation. We'll hear from different acharyas. According to some, it means the Lord who easily bypasses all obstacles. That's another way to look at it. Atikrama means something that gets in your way. You can't work around it. But the Lord easily oversteps everything. It also means that anyone who tries to overstep the Lord's authority has a very hard time. This is how Baladev Vidyabhushan understands it in his Viṣṇu Nama Sahasranama commentary. He says, Dukkadaha atikramaha shasana ullankhanam asya iti duratikramaha. If someone tries to overstep the Lord or ignore the Lord's authority, then he's going to have a hard time, because you cannot really, you can't step around the Lord's dominance. His predominance is all-pervading. So most of the major acharyas commenting on that name in Viṣṇu Sahasranama, they quote from the many Shruti mantras that directly paraphrase today's verse. That's why I'm taking this detour here. First of all, what are Shrutis? Do we know what Shrutis are? Raise your hand if you can tell me what is a Shruti. Oh, is it? Okay, what else? The Vedas? Yeah. What do you hear? What is coming from the Lord, his own voice, as it were, and the Shabda Brahman, or the Vedas? This is called Shruti. Vedic literatures are divided into 2 classes. We hear them contrasted sometimes. There's Shruti, and what's the other one? Smriti, yes. So Shruti means it's either spoken by the Lord, or it's eternally the Vedas. We say the Vedas are swataḥ pramāṇya. What does that mean? It means they're self-authoritative. Nobody wrote the Vedas, not even Krishna, although he says that in Bhagavad-gītā. But the fact is that the Vedas are eternal. That's why they're called swataḥ pramāṇya. And apauruṣeya is another way it's described. Apauruṣeya. No person wrote these Vedas. They're eternal. They are the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, as you said, in sound form, Shabda Brahma. So that is the Shruti. Now the Smriti means, well, let's dilate a little further. Shruti means the four Vedas. What are the four Vedas? Rig, Sama, Yajur, Atharva, yes. And their appendixes, which are called? No. Itihasas are Shrutis. What's appended to the end of the Vedas, we say? So, yeah, Upanishads, exactly. So every one of these four Vedas has a number of Upanishads attached to it. Just like Srila Prabhupada, he translated Ishopanishad for us. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Where would we be without Ishopanishad? One of the first books that I read. So Ishopanishad is coming from the Krishna Yajurveda. Yajurveda itself is divided into two. There's a white Yajurveda and a black Yajurveda. So the Krishna Yajurveda is where our Ishopanishad comes from. Similarly, all the other Upanishads, they're attached to one or the other of these four Vedas, and that's why they're also considered to be Shruti. The philosophy of the Vedas is called Vedanta because these Upanishads are the philosophical part of the Vedas. They're all appended to the Vedas, and they alone deal with philosophy. The Vedas mainly dealing with praise, and that's called arthavad, or yajnas, sacrifices, and so many things like that. But actually the philosophy, the purpose of life, and the absolute truth, that's discussed mainly in the Upanishads. So when we take these Upanishads and we codify them as Vyasa did, what do we call that? Vedanta philosophy. His school, his darshan, his school among the 6 orthodox schools of Hinduism, the school of Vyasadeva is called Vedanta because he's concerned about the Upanishads. And he's taken the gist of these Upanishads and he's compiled these codes called Vedanta Sutra. And this Srimad Bhagavatam is considered to be Vyasa's own commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Therefore, we can even say that if Srimad Bhagavatam is maybe not directly Shruti, but it has equal authority to Shruti. There's a word we have which is called prasthanatrayi. And that would be traditionally, this is a traditional definition, that we have the Vedas, that is to say the Shrutis. Then we have Vedanta Sutra, Vyasadeva, and Bhagavad-gītā. Why Bhagavad-gītā? Because Bhagavad-gītā, of course, it's spoken by the Lord, but Bhagavad-gītā also is mainly quoting from the Upanishads. Today's verse, this is virtually it's a paraphrase of several different Upanishads. It's a very famous idea expressed in the Vedas. The wind is blowing out of fear of the Lord. The sun is burning in the sky since time immemorial. Ashesha teja, out of fear of the Lord. In this way. So, Bhagavad-gītā is quoting many verses also from the Shrutis. That's why Prabhupada calls it in his introduction. Anybody remember? Gita Upanishad, yes. Because it's virtually, he's just paraphrasing. What's one example of this? Bhagavad-gītā chapter 2, text number 20. Anybody know that one offhand? Najayate mriyate? Yes, famous verse. So the same verse we find in the Katha Upanishad, but the words are slightly different. But it's basically the same verse. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, even Srila Prabhupada quotes it in his purport there. So this is Shruti. These are the Upanishads, and therefore we have Gita Upanishad. Similarly, because Bhagavatam in this today's verse demonstrates for us very clearly, Bhagavatam is also nothing but Vedanta. And Bhagavatam is also nothing but the Upanishads in a different form. Because Vyasadeva was very merciful. And Narad Muni had directed him, you got to focus a little bit more on Bhagavan, because after all this is Kali Yuga, and people are not so bright, so you have to make it real simple for them. And so Vyasadeva compiled this, Srimad Bhagavatam. And we're so dense, and so lazy, and so unfortunate that we think Srimad Bhagavatam is way over the top. 12 cantos, I can't do all that. Anyway, so therefore maybe that's why Shankaracharya said just one book is all you need. Devaki-putra Gita. That would be the Bhagavad-gītā. All right, so this is the Shruti and the Prasthana-trayi. And then you have the Smriti. Smriti means any other literature that is harmonious with the Vedic conclusions and is composed by perfect acharyas such as Manu and Parashar Muni, who wrote the Viṣṇu Purana, Vyasadeva, as we're talking, all these. Down to the present age, even in recent history, Srila Rupa Goswami has written his Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Bengali language even has written Chaitanya Charitamrita. These are also considered to be smritis because they follow directly from the Vedic authority without changing anything. So these are the two classes of Vedic literature that we have, Shrutis and Smritis. And as we said, Prasthana-trayi means Vedic literature that's either Shruti directly or it's Smritis that are traditionally considered to be as equivalent as Shrutis in terms of their authority. Now, this is a traditional consideration. You can't just argue from logic that because, Viṣṇu Purana is also dealing, it's a Sattvic Purana, and it's also dealing with devotional service and Lord Viṣṇu, therefore it's on the same footing as the Upanishads or as the Shruti. No, you can't do that. It is a traditional understanding that is received into cyclic succession. Only some Vedic literatures are considered to be part of the Prasthana-trayi. And among the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, as we mentioned, the Bhagavatam is most prominent. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam Prema Pumartho Mahan. Another reading of the same verse, which is by the Bhagavatam commentary, Srinath Chakravarti, his Mangalacharana for his Bhagavatam commentary. I might as well recite the whole thing. Aradhyo Bhagavan Vrajeshatanayas Tadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachit Upasana Vrajavadhu Vargena Yakalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam Prema Pumartho Mahan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamidam Tatradaro Nahparaha. So two readings. He says either Pramanam Amalam, the spotless evidence, or Puranam Amalam, the spotless Purana. Either way you can say. But that's our understanding. Srimad Bhagavatam is equivalent to Prasthana-trayi, even though it's not traditionally considered as such outside of our sampradaya. Well, I shouldn't say that, because the Vallabh Vaishnava Sampradaya, they also respect Srimad Bhagavatam in the same way. But Madhva Sampradaya, Ramanuja Sampradaya, others, they're not ready to admit that. Okay, so Srimad Bhagavatam is here quoting from Karta Upanishad. Not exactly a direct quote, but I'll just recite the verse. Bhayād asyagnis tapati, bhayāt tapati sūryaḥ. Bhayārindrascha vāyuscha mrityur dhavati panchamaha. What does that mean? Out of fear of him, fire burns. Out of fear of him, the sun shines. Out of fear of him, run Indra, Vayu, and the fifth one, who is death, Yamaraj. In other words, the word is used here, dhavati. Dhavati means to run. Who runs around? Servants. Servants run around. Just like we hear in Brahma Samhita. Lakshmi sahasra shata samprama sevyamanam. Samprama sevyamanam. That means they're all, as we say in Hindi, ast-vyast, all very busily running around doing service. Like when there's a festival, we see everybody's running around very busily engaged. This is how the Lakshmis occupy themselves in the spiritual realm. And this is how the demigods, who are mixed devotees in this material world, they go about their prescribed duties. Now, how good are they at performing their prescribed duties? Who can give me an example? Well, use the examples that are mentioned here. We have the sun. We set our clocks according to the regularity of the sun. That's how stable he is. Would that we could be so steady in our own duties, isn't it? Like the sun. Never once does he even come 1 second late, right on time, just like Rabindranath Prabhu. Famous. So these are the demigods, and even Adi Shankaracharya. We say Adi Shankaracharya because they call in that line every acharya since Shankara is called Shankaracharya also, because after all they're Mayavadis. But Adi Shankaracharya means the one that Lord Viṣṇu ordered to come into this world and preach this nonsensical philosophy in order to attract Buddhists back to Hinduism. So even Adi Shankaracharya comments on this verse from Kathopanishad that this statement implicitly refers to some supreme controller. Otherwise, all these other mighty controllers would not be running about like servants, trembling in fear of him. Indra has to perform his thing and send the rain only where it's supposed to go. He can't just do it willy-nilly. According to the karma, he has to give it here and not there, in particular time, place, and circumstances. The sun that we described, yasyāgnaya brahmati sambhrita kala chakra, Brahma Samhita tells us. He's performing his duty, mounting the wheel of time and traversing the universe in a particular, very specific order, only by the order of Govinda. Even Durga Devi, Brahma Samhita is a good way to find out all these truths, because even Durga Devi is mentioned there, Ganapati is mentioned there, Surya Deva is mentioned there, Indra is mentioned there, so many of these great devatas. So Shankaracharya, of all people, he would admit that there is a supreme controller. It's not that we're all the same. Indra cannot argue that, well, no, you and I are both Brahma, so I'm not going to do what you say. He can't do that. This is the meaning of the word duratikrama. If he tries that, in fact, he did try that. And what happened? A couple of times he tried it. And he learned his lesson. So these things are all meant to teach us that we have duties to perform. The main duty in human life is to become Krishna conscious. And we have to do it in a certain way, according to the discipline. That is what a God-fearing person does. Now, all these verses, I don't want to jump ahead and spoil the plot, but all the way up until text 44 of this chapter, they're all kind of in the same vein. And they're pointing out also that all these devatas are performing their functions of cosmic mid-level management under the direction and out of fear of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Fear, not love necessarily. Just like Islam. What do you think is a more prominent sentiment in Islam? Is it more emphasis on love, or is it more emphasis on law? The very name Islam means to submit to the law. It's a kind of a fear-based system. Most of the Abrahamic religions are like that, actually, if you study them. Okay. So the point is, as we mentioned from Shankaracharya already, that Kathopanishad is also stated elsewhere, Nityo Nityananam, Chaitanas Chaitananam, Ego Bahunam Yovidhati Kaman. There are many eternal living beings. All of us are eternal, and we're all living beings. Many of us are conscious, all of us are conscious. Many such conscious beings, but only one of those conscious eternal beings is actually fulfilling everybody else's needs and desires. That is the argument for the existence of God. And even Shankaracharya has to admit that. Now, the same verse, today's verse, we find it in the Taittiriya Upanishad as well. Taittiriya Upanishad, very famous authority for us in particular. Why is that? What other reference do we find in Taittiriya Upanishad that forms practically the entire basis of bhakti? Taittiriya Upanishad. Anybody know what I'm thinking of? Think rasa. Rasaya raso vaisa. That's famous statement. This Supreme Lord, this absolute truth, He is rasa. That means it's not all one. Rasa means for there to be a taste. The taste is predicated on the existence of somebody who tastes it. That is to say, there's an enjoyer and there's a servant. Somebody's providing the rasa, someone is enjoying the rasa. The Lord is therefore called Rasika Shekhara. And Rupa Goswami says in his Smriti, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Akhila Rasamrita Murti. He is the embodiment of all the rasas, all the nectar that we can derive from any rasa, that is Krishna. Reservoir of all pleasures, Prabhupada translated it often. Okay. So Taittiriya Upanishad, Book 2, Chapter 8, Text 1. Bhishasmad yata pavate, vātaḥ pavate, bhisho deiti sūryaḥ, bhishmasmad agnish-chandrascha, mrityur dhavati panchamaha. Almost the same thing as we heard already from Katha Upanishad. Okay, so these coming verses in this short passage of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Kapila Dev speaking to his mother, it also says, tomorrow's verse, in fact, says that all the trees, all the plants, all the flowers and fruits, they all follow their own dharmas unfailingly, just like Indra. Unless we tweak them, which we have begun to do, right? That's why we don't really get such regular seasons anymore. In India, it used to be very hot in the hot season, but now it's deadly in the hot season. And in some places we get rain at a certain time of year, and in some places we get devastating floods because we've tweaked the system. We have, by dint of deviating from our own dharma, we have made it worse for everybody else. This is ecology. They actually have a branch of ecology called deep ecology, in which people look at it in terms of cosmic law. And this is very close to what we hear about in the Vedas. Word is used for that, rita. Rita means the cosmic truth, the order underlying all things in this universe. Like Arjuna told Krishna in Bhagavad-gītā, sarvametad ritam manye. Truth, absolute truth. So, the trees are growing in a certain way, they're producing only certain fruits. You don't find a banana tree producing mangoes or, bananas with thorns. There's an order to things. So, an early 17th century Anglican bishop named Henry King, he wrote about this in probably what is his best known poem. Isn't this an Anglican church just up the street here? Episcopalian is the same thing, no? I don't know. There's an American version and British version, but in England they call it Church of England. So Henry King, he said, listen closely, brave flowers, that I could gallant it like you, and be so little vain. For you come abroad and make a harmless show, and to your beds of earth again. You're not proud, you know your birth, for your embroidered garments are from earth. You do obey your months and times, but I would have it ever spring. My fate would know no winter, never die, nor even think of such a thing. Oh, that I could my bed of earth but view, and smile, and look as cheerfully as you. This is called gratitude for our place in the universe, satisfaction, santushti, for our lot in life. What he's describing is actually the ideal of modern civilization, isn't it? We just want to look upon everything as meant for our enjoyment. We want to do so at any time, anywhere, with anyone, in any way. This is wrong. This is atheism. And that's why we have to have verses like today's verse. Because there's somebody who's controlling all this. Who's in charge of this rain? 1 year or several years back, maybe 5 years ago or so, there was a violent hailstorm in Vrindavan. On which day was it? It was on Balaram's appearance day. And everybody in Vrindavan felt Balaram is mad about something. Everybody had the same intuition simultaneously. This hailstorm was so severe, every billboard in Vrindavan was completely shredded with hail. All the cars had big, looked like had been shot with a machine gun. Very hard. Every tree was denuded of leaves. Very heavy storm. I mean, when things like that happen, you have to think twice, and that's why they happen. This world is full of these miseries, just to make us stop and think that, wait a minute, maybe I'm not the supreme enjoyer, the supreme controller after all. All right, so the rest of this Bhagavatam chapter 29 here, it functions as a virtual commentary on all these Shruti mantras that have been quoted by our acharyas. Incidentally, the same Shruti mantras that I'm quoting today from the Taittiriya and from the Katha Upanishad, they're also quoted by by all the acharyas, virtually all the acharyas, in their commentary on Viṣṇu Sahasranam that we've already mentioned regarding Duratikrama. That's how they understand it. You can't overstep the authority of the Lord. Okay, so these are a few things we can think about here. I don't know what time we're supposed to go until 8:35. So I'll stop here. But Bhagavad-gītā Prabhu.
The word fear is being used here in the translation, and you kind of touched upon that repeatedly. And the fear is an emotion, and it's generally like a negative emotion. It's considered like that in most contexts. And you also mentioned about how if you read the Quran, it's more fear motivating than love motivating. I had that experience. At some 2-year college, I made a deal with somebody. You read the Bhagavad-gītā, I'll read your Quran. And I went into the library, tried reading it for about 20 minutes.
Quite an experience, isn't it?
Very intimidating. I found it very intimidating. I was shocked. Like, wow, this is like really shocking, intimidating. Actually. And all the Abrahamic religions, But our tradition is bhakti, it's love-based. So here's my question. Are these personalities like Indra, Surya, Chandra, all these different demigods, are they actually feeling the emotion fear, and is that what's motivating them to do their duty? Or is it more like fear in the sense of respect for authority? Like yesterday, Mother Nandini Radha, she paid her taxes. She told me it's a Cesar Chavez Day, so she's spending the whole day to pay her taxes. So, I don't think she was like fearing, but she knows it's a government, it's an authority, and if you don't respect the authority, there's going to be consequences. Is it fear in that sense?
They come after you in a big way.
Huh?
They come after you in a big way.
Yeah, right. So is it like, they're actually feeling that emotion because, we're bhakti, or is it just more like respect for the authority, knowing that there's consequences?
Good question. They are devotees. The demigods, of course, they're devotees, but they're generally sakama devotees. Not always. Sometimes they're pure devotees. Generally, they're sakama devotees, and sakama devotee means he has some mixture of illusion. Frankly, that's really the only possible conclusion. And they're described in the 11th canto, bhayam dvitiyabhinaveshata syat isharapetasya viparyayo smritihi. Anybody who has turned away from God to any degree and in any way, he is commensurately blessed with fear. Because if you turn away from God, the only other option is to take shelter of viparyaya smriti, bewilderment. So even the demigods, muhyanti yat sūryaḥ, they're also in that category according to Bhagavatam. So they're devotees and they're enlightened, relatively speaking, comparatively speaking. They're much more enlightened than even most of us. But they have their imperfections also, and we see that throughout the Vedic literatures. They get in, like we mentioned Indra already. Indra has, mostly it seems Indra has girl trouble. But, they have their mistakes. They have their, some of them are proud, some of them get angry, some of them, whatever. Same problems that we have, but they have it in a more subtle way. But because they're devotees, they can feel some emotion, just like even we feel something. Otherwise, why are we chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare? We're getting something from it. But whether that's mature, whether it's complete, whether it's unmixed, this is the thing. So it's a mixed bag, mixed pickle, you can say, these demigods. Some of them are feeling fear in a negative sense, as you mentioned. Some of them are feeling fear of God in the sense that they respect authority also, as you've also mentioned. Some of them are actually feeling love. It's mixed. Some of them are they're all different kinds. Just like all of us here in this temple, they're all different kinds of people. And they've got all different kinds of motives, and they've got all different kinds of advantages and disadvantages. Demigods are the same, but on a higher level. As they say, the saying goes, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. So demigods have, they live a very consequential life, these demigods, because they can affect real problems in this world if they go astray. And they have to eat the karma for that. They have to suffer. I hope that's answering your question. Yeah. Yes, Swavas Prabhu.
Thank you for a wonderful class. What comes to mind to me is that, those of us that are in this material world and we're really conditioned, and even though we're chanting Hare Krishna, sometimes the mind is so powerful that it just takes you away. You don't really want it to go anywhere. And then after, 30 seconds or 60 seconds, you realize, wait a minute, what am I thinking about? So I'm just really wondering, what is our real position in terms of, you're talking about the demigods and all their qualifications and their abilities. We're conditioned souls. We're so little, teeny, infinitesimal living entities who are struggling tremendously each day just to be able to control the stupid mind. And we don't even agree with what it's saying. We actually will think back and we'll chastise ourselves and say, what am I thinking about? This is completely stupid. So what is our position in terms of, coming back home at the Godhead?
Yeah, it can be discouraging, can't it? You're slogging it out every day with your mind, and some losing more often than not, it seems. And well, the thing is that Krishna notices all the struggles that we take for him. It means something to him. This is not a mechanical process. This is a personal appeal, and it's a relationship. And we all depend ultimately on mercy. And we can gain the Lord's mercy. It's inconceivable. Christians say, amazing grace. It's inconceivable, Rupa Goswami says. Taradbhuti kripadbhuta vichim, the wonderful waves of the Lord's mercy. What can that do? Durghata ghatana vidhatri. It can make impossible things happen. What Srila Prabhupada did was impossible, frankly. Yeah. Totally impossible. Unthinkable even. His godbrothers had already dismissed it as such. But Prabhupada did it because he got mercy from the Lord. Now, how do we get that mercy? We make our best attempt. We keep trying. We don't give up. A lifetime spent struggling like this, it does not go in vain ever at any time. Even a little advancement on this path, Krishna promises, you're not going to lose. And then every once in a while we see there's a case where somebody who just really didn't even deserve any mercy, but he gets it. We can hope for that. We shouldn't depend on that, no way. But we can hope like that. But we should know for sure that the Lord's mercy will always come 100% of the time. He dispenses his mercy in his own time, in his own way. And that's, sometimes difficult for us, but this is the Lord's authority. This is his prerogative.
When I was a younger devotee, we always would say, we're declaring war on Maya. And I don't think I really understood what that meant.
Yeah, Shachinandan Maharaj, when he speaks, he often emphasizes this. Yeah. Only the young devotees talk so enthusiastically about surrender.
Yeah. As the years go by, though, you're thinking, wow, I didn't really want to have war on Maya, but just because, but it just automatically happens in terms of hearing the philosophy, hearing your wonderful class, hearing Srila Prabhupada. It really gives you the enthusiasm to actually fight Maya, to really declare war on Maya.
That's called prabha. This is the potency of this process. Shuddhyanti tasmai prabhavishnave nama. The Lord is full of this potency that he does purify even those persons who are completely unfit by any estimation. He does it. That is the mercy. That is the wonder of this bhakti process. And we should never forget that this bhakti process is not comparable to anything else for that reason. Because if we try to depend on our karma or our jnana or our yoga or whatever else we might take shelter of, we're going to fail, Durur. For sure, we're going to fail. So the only hope we have is that we can gain the mercy of the Lord, and we gain that mercy mainly by gaining the mercy of the Lord's pure devotee, and we know what Prabhupada wants. It's very clear. Every single page of all these, 60 volumes of books that he worked all night long for each of us to make, it tells us what he wants. So that's our great good fortune. We have everything we need, actually. Yeah. Brigupati, you want to add? Sorry?
Small question.
Yeah.
You talked a lot about the Vedas and the Upanishads. In one lecture, I remember hearing Prabhupada say that the Upanishads are the headlines of the Vedas.
Oh, nice.
And I'm trying to remember, he probably explained what he meant by that in the lecture, but I can't remember. Would you shed some light on that?
Yeah, I don't remember offhand where that is.
But you've heard it, right?
Yeah.
Headlines of the Vedas.
He says the same things in different ways, in different places. So, and that's why it's such a great adventure to read Prabhupada's books every day, because you get the same thing that you've been hearing every day for the last how many years, but he says it in a certain way that just illustrates something of its nature that you hadn't maybe considered before or appreciated before. And this is the great potency of words. And this is why, this is what it means to be eloquent. Prabhupada is really like that. Yeah. And, he says things in such a way that make you think. You can't just skim through Prabhupada's books. You have to think about what he writes. Otherwise, you're going to miss it. So, yeah. Anyway, headlines of the Vedas. That's a good one. Yeah. You had a comment, a question?
I just remembered something on what Savas Prabhu was saying about the new devotees.
Yeah.
So I have a good brother in Sydney, and we were distributing books. And this verse you were quoting about Srimad Bhagavatam Purana. So he's actually literally showed the Bhagavatam to son, and he's quoting this verse. That's this Bhagavatam is gonna remove all the darkness. So it's pretty interesting.
That's the third verse that we recited before the class. Krishne svadhamo pagate dharma jnanadapyasaha kalaunashtadrishamesha puranarko dhunodata. We should remember that verse. I noticed that when we recite that verse, people kind of trail off like they're not sure. We should know these verses. They're very important. 1:343, if I'm not mistaken, that one. Okay, we should stop here. Thank you all very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.